All right, ladies and gentlemen, but mostly gentlemen, let's be real. This is how this is going to go. Fairy Tale 100 Years Quest is about to drop, or it probably already has with my level of procrastination. So I decided to revisit the Fairy Tale anime in all of its glory. Every single filler episode, and I'm going to rank them from worst to best, like I did with Naruto. Now, this video is going to have much looser rules than the Naruto one, so first, go watch that video after you're done this. But really first now, we have to answer the question, what counts as filler? I'm going to be counting any anime material that isn't a part of the main manga story. We got gag episodes, OVAs, a couple of entire filler arcs. Even the movies are fair game. There's only 2 of them, after all. Yes, before anybody says it in the comments, yes, I know that a lot of this is actually adapted from a bunch of omakes by Hiro Mashima himself, the author. Omakes being these short little side stories in the manga released in between or alongside chapters that have little to no impact on the actual story. I decided to take all of these into consideration, all the animated ones at least, because, well, they are technically manga filler, and also because watch time. Anyway, I had a lot of fun revisiting all this Fairy Tale. In my opinion, Fairy Tale is at its best when it's not taking itself so seriously. Hope you guys enjoy this as well. Make sure to comment down below what some of your favorite moments or arcs or characters are. I live for the comment section. And without any further ado, let's get cracking, shall we? Thank you, Abby. With number 34, True Scoundrels, the Butt Jiggle Gang. True scoundrels, true villains, true evil! It just isn't that funny, man. It just isn't that funny. Here we are, introduced to this trio of hoodlums called the Butt Jiggle Gang. The Butt Jiggle Gang. The Butt Jiggle Gang. How now, brown cow? How now, brown cow? All right, I think I got it. While on a job to deliver some cargo to a client by train, Natsu, Happy, Lucy, Wendy, and Carla are ambushed by the Butt Jiggle Gang and their gas magic because they want to steal the gold that our fairy tale mages are currently transporting in said cargo. Lucy, Happy, and Carla end up getting knocked off the train, and Natsu struggles with his motion sickness, so it's up to Wendy to protect the gold from these fiends of flatulence. The BBL gang then want to recruit Wendy to their group after seeing her Dragon Slayer magic, and Wendy, using this as a way to get them to let their guard down, and also because, you know, she wants to prove how strong she is, decides to play along to try and beat them at their own game, just long enough for Natsu to come to his senses on this halted train car after being severed from the rest of the train, and fire Dragon Iron Fist, a band of booty bandits, into the sky, blasting off again Team Rocket style. Now, I do enjoy Wendy sort of playing this 4D chess game with the ass assassins, using her charm as well as her magic to keep these guys from ruining their mission completely. And I do also enjoy the added wrinkle of Natsu growing immune to Wendy's healing magic. It's actually a thing that carries on throughout the series. But yeah, it's just not that funny, man. I also do feel slightly uncomfortable with these goons of the glutes putting, you know, Wendy in this skin-tight suit meant for emphasizing booty meat and then worshiping her like a goddess. I don't know how I feel about grown men simping for Wendy. I mean, if toilet humor is your thing, then seek this out by all means, but by that standards, even to me, the jokes are all very just not that funny. These guys come nowhere near close to the other legendary gag villains in shonen like Buggy or the aforementioned Team Rocket, or those 2 guys from the beginning of Dragon Ball GT that were trying to rob Capsule Corp but ended up just tricking on Goku for the entire day instead. I love those guys. They kind of remind me of the Home Alone thieves. No, just me. Next, number 33, we got the Labyrinth of White. This is what I like to call a nothing burger, ladies and gentlemen. We got a few of these coming up. It isn't the worst thing in the world. It's only a single episode of your time, and it isn't the BBL gang, but it is still a giant waste of time. Lucy, Natsu, and Happy are on this job, right, climbing Mount Hakube in search of this special type of ice with unique magical properties. Ooh. Unfortunately, our crew ends up getting stuck in a fierce blizzard, forcing them to retreat to an ice cave while the storm passes. This cave ends up being some legendary mystical living cave that traps whoever enters it inside, and plot twist, Lucy, Natsu, and Happy wind up getting trapped inside. After days of going without food or sleep or warmth outside of Natsu's singular flame that he's been struggling to keep lit the entire time because, you know, he's tired too, the sleep deprivation eventually catches up to all of them, causing Natsu, specifically driven by delirious rage after having his dinner time hallucination in his head interrupted, strikes the walls of the cave, revealing another wall behind the wall completely made up of the magical Hakube ice. Then it's just a race to escape the mountain. and a giant octopus for some reason. Now, I usually like the trope in fiction where a couple of characters, usually with some tension or drama, end up getting trapped inside a room and, usually leads to incredible character growth for both of them, but we get none of that here. They kind of just sit there the entire time just complaining about how cold and hungry and tired they are. It's not even really that funny. And then after all the trouble they went through to find the Hakube ice, Lucy just ends up giving Natsu the entire ice chunk that she cut off of the wall for him to eat so that he could use it as strength to help him defeat the octopus monster. Meaning that they now have to go back into the cave and do the entire thing over again. When Lucy easily just could have cut, I don't know, more than one chunk of ice off of the wall before they left, or maybe a larger chunk of ice. Damn it, Lucy. It's one of those episodes, the gag where you end up in the same position that you started in, but it doesn't have any of the interesting or hilarious shenanigans in between to even help you feel like you didn't just waste 20 minutes of your life. This could have been the moment Natsu and Lucy started realizing they were catching feelings for each other, right? Missed potential for sure. Kaguya-sama Love Is War would have had a field day with this plotline. Number 32. Oh, we got an OVA this time. It's Natsu versus Mavis. This is honestly just a misleading title. There's no fight, no wacky series of competitions or anything. I think Natsu and Mavis only interact with each other like twice in this entire thing. Once at the beginning in the bathhouse, and then again at the end of the episode where they all find Mavis's treasure. This is the first OVA and omake on the list, and for good reason, because this is a major letdown, man. Mavis is feeling sad. Lucy, Urza, and Natsu just chilling in the women's bath like everything is normal, try to find out a way to cheer her up. Warren then shows up, also just vibing in the women's bath like everything is normal, and tells them of this treasure chest that Mavis buried back when the Zero crew was all still together. Team Natsu plus Juvia search around the entire forest looking for it until they eventually find it at the base of the tree that Natsu and Happy's house was built on, much to Happy and Natsu's dismay. Turns out this entire time Mavis was sad because this is actually the anniversary of her parting ways with Zero. Go read Fairy Tail Zero if you don't understand why this is one of the saddest things in all of fiction. What was in the treasure chest was a picture of the entire Zero crew that Mavis drew herself, and seeing it again does in fact lift her spirits. Hooray. I'ma cut straight to the chase, man. This shit is boring. Most of the episode is just them digging holes in the forest. And even though we're still early on in the video by you guys' time, by this point for me, I had watched so many OVAs and filler that honestly, I was just getting tired of seeing everyone naked. Like, this entire first half of the episode is there is a such thing as too much fan service. I guess it's still more interesting than Labyrinth of White or the BBL gang because of Fairy Tail Zero tax, but it still isn't all that interesting. Number 31 now, hopefully something that's not false advertising. It's Kemo-Kemo! Oh, this is a rare two-part filler episode about Natsu raising this baby dragon frog bird type thing. And then it dies, which is sad. Spoiler alert, by the way. While on a job with Lucy, this time a mysterious egg falls out of the sky on the Natsu's head, and once it eventually hatches, it basically turns into that one episode where SpongeBob and Patrick have to take care of that baby clam. The parents, this time being Natsu and Happy. Except it isn't, because then this plotline is almost immediately shoved in the background of another plotline where all of the guilds participate in this guild exchange program. What the omake that this episode was adapted from was actually about. And this is basically just the same joke over and over and over again about Natsu, Happy, and Kemo-Kemo, that aforementioned baby dragon frog bird type thing, getting Fairy Tail kicked out of each and every guild hall because shenanigans. Before they get a chance to shadow at Sabretooth though, the program ends up getting canceled, and instead Sting, Rogue, and Team Natsu are all called to investigate this island that mysteriously appeared out of nowhere at the request of the Magic Council. The second episode is basically all about them figuring out what this island's deal is, and obviously it's the home of Kemo-Kemo. Anybody could have seen this coming from a mile away. Kemo-Kemo then sacrifices itself to protect everyone from this. Oh, there's also this sea serpent on the island that it's spewing this poisonous virus that everyone is just, it's COVID basically. Kemo-Kemo's body naturally produces the antidote for this, I guess, and yeah, it's just not as good as the Mecha Naruto story. I'm sorry. That was kind of my point of reference for this episode because of the big sacrifice at the end. They try to make you feel all sad for Kemo-Kemo and shit, but like we barely get any screen time with it across 2 whole episodes. So by this point, I just don't care. These emotions are unearned. At least Mecha Naruto was the plot instead of a B plot in its own filler arc. Number 30, top 30. It's the exciting Ryuzetsu Land. Hey! Our second OVA of the list, and this is just okay. Sorry to let you down. I feel like there's a better vacation episode coming up on this list that we'll talk about later. But this is still kind of cool, I guess, because it is set after the Grand Magic game, so we get to see a bunch of characters from the other guilds, Quattro, Cerberus, Raventail, even a bit of Sabretooth shows up at the end. Releasing alongside manga volume 38, Fairy Tail takes a trip to Ryuzetsu Land, which is a water park. And yeah, for the most part, it's just another excuse to get everyone in swimsuits, pretty much. Standard ecchi fan service. I still don't like Wendy and Shelia being simped over. There's actually a lot of romance in this OVA too. The usual suspects, Evergreen and Elfman, Levy and Gajil, Happy and Carlo, all spending the entire day together. Jalal shows up too to swim, mask and all, completely flustering Urza. The best part of the episode for me definitely has to be Natsu committing the ultimate sin. Running near the pool. Running away from Ichiya. Ichiya was there, you know, doing the Ichiya stuff with the boys. What? But yeah, Natsu runs away and ends up slipping and crashing into a water slide, knocking everyone, and I say everyone, but it's pretty much just all the couples, onto this slide as well, being forced to ride it. It was a couple's water slide anyway. Gray and Leon are forced to ride together, which leads to some hilarious yaoi jokes. Evergreen petrifies Elfman to keep everyone from seeing them together, okay? Happy, on the way to save Natsu, gets jealous seeing Carla riding with Panther Lily against her will. Urza's swimsuit is coming unraveled, which has Jalal all hot and bothered, ooh. And Julia is being Julia. In the end, obviously, the entire park ends up getting destroyed after Gray and Leon turn everything to ice, and Natsu, as recklessly as only Natsu can, tries to melt it. Everything else in the episode is just, you know, every beach amusement park filler episode you've ever seen, but yeah, it's all right. It's all right. I like it. It's better than Kemo-Kemo. Next, number 29, back to school season. Is Fairy Academy. I have no idea what I was expecting from a Fairy Tail high school episode. This didn't under-deliver, but it also didn't over-deliver. It just delivered. But like, really unenthusiastically, I feel like you know when the Amazon driver just kind of tosses your box like, you know, Kobe. This is an OVA that was released with manga volume 27. A what-if scenario where instead of joining this fantasy magicians guild called Fairy Tail, instead it's Lucy Heartfilia transferring to a new school called Fairy Academy. Fast forward a little bit. While on her way to a date after school, Urza, Lucy, and Wendy end up getting into a confrontation with a rival school, Phantom Academy. Urza handily defeats them all by herself, but then this incites a turf war between the schools, which comes to a head the following day, and that's pretty much the entire episode. Fairy Academy wins the day. All the students involved get an earful about it, and Gajil and Juvia end up transferring to Fairy Academy just like in the actual story. Now, there are things about this I enjoyed a lot. The commitment to the bit here is admirable. Instead of magic, we have Natsu using hot sauce and Gray using ice cubes to fight. Aquarius with legs is something that, now that I've seen it, I think I can die peacefully with no regrets. And of course, Happy is the homeroom teacher. Madness. It's a bit of a missed opportunity to not have Makarov be the principal here, but honestly, I think it being Plu instead is much more stupid and therefore hilarious. And then also Makarov, Kana, Macau, and Wakaba being the grown adults still in high school because they never graduated. That's pretty funny too. But yeah, I mean, this is just your standard high school parody episode. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, so don't judge me. I'm not really the biggest fan of these types of spoofs, right? Like the high school genre in general, right? Unless it's a battle shonen or a sports series. Or Kaguya-sama Love is War. I still rank this over Ryuzetsu Land though, again, just for the commitment to the bit. Number 28. I feel like this might get me in trouble. It's Fairy Tail Zero, The Treasure Hunt. Please don't revoke my Fairy Tail card. Now, I love Fairy Tail Zero. I really do. Learning about the founders of the Fairy Tail Guild, Mavis and Xeris relationship, obviously. The first usage of the law spell was cool as hell. The whole thing surrounding Zero, it's easily one of, if not the best arc in Fairy Tail. And the opening go crazy. But was this episode really needed? Right after Mavis and Zero are accepted into Yuri's group of treasure hunters, Mavis overhears that they seem to be having some financial troubles. They down bad. Bored on the ship, looking for any way to help and just to do something, Mavis dives into the ocean and discovers this underwater temple. She's then attacked by this giant guardian fish, but Yuri and Ward come to her aid. Eventually, Mavis solves this ancient riddle, which unfortunately only detonates the entire temple, but not before the three of them each snag some jewels for their troubles. Pretty simple and straightforward. I love this puzzle that Mavis has to solve here. It adds a real adventure RPG dungeon element to this, which Fairy Tail does well in a lot of its arcs. But this is literally just a side quest, like an optional side quest at that. Like one of those side quests that they don't even bother to do voiceovers for. That's how irrelevant it is. Honestly, just feels like a way to help stretch out the journey to Harjion an extra week for whatever reason, probably production reasons. Plus, Mavis is kind of annoying in this episode. Now, I love Mavis. She's precious and adorable, and I never want to see her cry ever in life. But I really feel for Yuri here, man. Like, kid, please, bro. Please just go sit down. Can you not be yourself for just 5 minutes? For 5 minutes! He has about 17 donkeys worth of energy in this episode. But it is still Fairy Tail 0, so bonus points for that, I guess. Number 27. Full effort hospitality. We got another nothing burger, boys. This one is a bit more wholesome. Coming directly after the whole Eclipse project fiasco, Lucy and Yukino want to show the Zodiac Celestial Spirits some love by granting them one wish each. Aries wants a tan, so Natsu helps with that bit, which makes sense, sure. Am I supposed to be offended by this? Taurus just wants to simp over Yukino. Virgo gets the Itachi forehead flick from Lucy. I'm pretty sure this has inspired many Doujin comics throughout the years. Cancer wants to give Happy a new hairstyle, which makes Happy unhappy. Capricorn just wants Lucy to listen to his poetry. Sagittarius wants to shoot an apple off of somebody's head, which Lucy uses as an opportunity to bully Happy some more. Scorpio... Actually, I think Scorpio kind of said, nah, I'm good. Gemini wants to walk around as Lucy naked, wrapped in a towel. Libra wants to be a Bleach character and flex her spiritual pressure on everyone. Okay. Pisces wants to eat Happy, poor Happy. And last but not least, Aquarius, in a foul mood as always, demands Lucy to make her laugh. Harmless fun, you gotta love it. The running gag about bullying Happy is hilarious. But again, it's just not really much substance here. At the end of the episode, we get this pretty heartwarming moment between Lucy and Aquarius, her adoptive celestial mother in a lot of ways. But it isn't anything we haven't seen before in the series. And to be honest, I feel like this entire episode as a concept would have worked better coming after the Eclipse Celestial Spirit arc, which comes right after this, which we'll talk about later. No spoilers. More entertaining than Mavis's treasure hunt, I think, because Happy is still tame enough to not really leave that much of an impression on me, you know? Next, on the number 26, welcome to Fairy Hills. If you're gonna do a slice of life type of filler, this is how you do it, in my opinion. Kind of like the last one, harmless, wacky fun with a genuinely heartwarming, little story at the end sprinkled on top. That or absolute chaos, but there's plenty of that coming up. This OVA is just sweet, man. Lucy accepts this strange job, requesting only females to search for something that was lost at Fairy Hills, the girls' only dormitory for the guild. With no reward, by the way, but Lucy's pride as a mage carries her through. Once she gets there, she ends up meeting this old lady, the dorm mother, who puts her in this sexy cat outfit because Fairy Tail loves the furry community and sends her on this treasure hunt around the dorm that only non-residents can complete. I forgot to mention that. With the only clue being that the treasure is hidden in a dark place. The only thing that the old lady can remember about where she put it, that is. Not long after this, Wendy and Carla show up to move in. This OVA taking place right after the Irration Sace after all. And also Urza shows up, which is when the old lady mysteriously disappears. Oh. And then the episode pretty much turns into a tour of the dorm, basically. Ibisca's room probably smells like shit. Eventually, Lucy finds this box filled with jewels in the shadow of a tree outside the dorm. Full of excitement, she shows Urza and tells her all about her job request, which surprisingly makes Urza start crying. Aww. Turns out the old lady named Hilda, she was indeed the dorm mother, but turns out she died 6 years ago in a horrific carriage accident where she fell off a cliff. And actually, the night before she died, she told young Urza that a cat princess would deliver a bunch of jewels to all the girls in the dorm. Wink, wink. And then after this, the job request disappears as Lucy comes to the realization that it was all just the spirit of Hilda all along. Yeah, just a really heartwarming little story. And then there's also this side plot where all the guys slack off on their chores but end up getting cursed by the sight of Makarov's. Yeah, not the most exciting filler in the world or anything. I wish there was some action. And it's not exactly the funniest OVA either. But this OVA is really just about Hilda, the old lady. And in that sense, I think it really delivers. Next, number 25, we're a full 10 down. It's the Fairies Christmas OVA. I might be a little bit biased towards this, but that's only because I think I watch this pretty much every year, you know, with the rest of my holiday themed specials. It's pretty self-explanatory. Is it raining? Can you guys hear that? Anyways, Fairy Tail Guild is preparing to celebrate Christmas. While cleaning up the cathedral on Christmas Eve, everything seems to be going smoothly, that is, until Natsu, Gray, and Happy, because of course they do, play around too much and cause the church's bell to fall from its holding at the top of the clock tower. Our team then works double time to get everything back into place by the end of the day. The episode doesn't get started for me, though, until everyone throws this Christmas party at Lucy's apartment, unbeknownst to her. All the girls get drunk and then they start playing this Guildmaster game. Urza's idea, after getting jealous seeing, you know, everybody start to couple up. The game is basically everyone picks a popsicle stick with numbers on them and one crown. Whoever gets the crown gets to order the other numbers around. Urza somehow becomes the master almost every time and then proceeds to make everyone's lives a living hell, completely humiliating them almost like it's revenge for what Mira Jane did to her in that other OVA.
It's a lot of foreshadowing going on.
Long story short, I'm sure that every horny high school or college student anywhere would love to play Truth or Dare with Urza. Eventually, Gray becomes the master and, to put an end to everyone's suffering, orders Urza to go home naked. This is when she runs into Jalal, of all people, walking, and good for her because now she no longer has to feel jealous after seeing everyone else get all lovey-dovey. Completely against the will of all the guys, by the way. I always appreciate whenever the strong-willed girl boss Urza turns into this shy, timid little girl. It's amazing. And Christmas has always been my favorite time of the year, so bonus points for aesthetics. Even if it feels weird watching a Christmas special in the middle of July. Yo, this is a deep cut. Remember that one time they played like all the Christmas episodes in July on Cartoon Network? That was fun. Number 24. What a Pure Heart Weaves. This is the sort of slice of life I really enjoy. On the surface, it's just a story about Natsu babysitting Asuka while her parents Alzak and Biska are away on a job. It's exactly what you think it is. Asuka being an absolute gremlin child tormenting Natsu, who obviously has no idea how to raise a kid. It doesn't take long for Lucy to get involved because it ain't like she had anything else to do that day. And the three of them, including Happy, end up taking Asuka on a bunch of quick and easy jobs to make enough money for her to buy something for her parents. This snow globe lacrima that Alzak and Biska found on their first job together, that they had to unfortunately sell one day to buy medicine for Asuka when she was sick as a baby. After buying it though, a bunch of scoundrels, not named the Butt Jiggle Gang, end up stealing the snow globe for themselves for about 5 minutes at least before Natsu secretly brings them down, giving Asuka all the credit. Again, nothing terribly exciting, it's just a babysitting episode after all, but this really does a lot for Asuka's character, man, showing how reckless but also good intentioned she can be. Kind of just like Natsu. I always felt like Alzak and Biska deserved more focus in the story. I never would have expected Asuka, of all people, to get an episode dedicated to herself. After all, she was only really introduced just to pit over the time skip. If there's one thing Fairy Tail filler does well, it's focusing on all these tertiary members of the guild that barely ever get any speaking lines outside of a random quip here or there. More foreshadowing. Number 23. It's another wholesome one. We're really in the sweet and innocent section of the video. It's Rainbow Cherry Blossoms. Another Omake, another one. But we'll get to that in a little bit because I'm gonna be honest, the anime staff added a lot to the story to be able to adapt it into a full anime episode. The Hanami Festival is upon us to celebrate the Sakura blooming season of Magnolia, because even though we're in medieval times, we're also still in Japan somehow. Everyone in Fairy Tail is preparing for their annual party. Everyone except Team Natsu, that is, helping Wendy and Carla on one of their first jobs actually since joining the guild, up on Mount Hakabe once again, this time searching for a special herb with unique magical properties. Ooh. The team manages to retrieve the herb relatively unscathed. However, the next day, Lucy, unfortunately, comes down with a cold, keeping her bedridden and unable to make the big Hanami party. Natsu feels bad about it, so he and Happy decide to devise a plan, put the big cherry blossom tree on a boat, and sail it through Magnolia so that Lucy can at least see the bloom from her apartment. It's great to see Natsu be this thoughtful and sentimental, you know, being the knuckleheaded and, at most times, completely emotionally oblivious shonen main protagonist and whatnot. It's sweet. Not only that, but the anime staff put their foot in this episode, man. Yo. That tree, bro. Beautiful. And bright, too. I see why they used to have that Natsu disclaimer at the beginning. Make sure you don't sit too close to the TV while you're watching this video. It's also kind of like a series retrospective episode, like everything that Lucy and Natsu have been through up until this point. It's actually really kind of cool, yo. That was all the anime adding context and filling time, really. But it was lit. It was lit. Fairy Tail is always lit. On to the next. Flying through. Number 22. Bars. It's the Magic Dance Ball. This is a job where a bunch of the guild, not just Team Natsu for once, goes undercover at a dance exclusively for magic users. The extremely well-off Balsamico family wants to hire a wizard to apprehend an escaped convict named Velvino, who they fear will try. This guy's face really looks like a butthole. A ring to be unveiled every 7 years, coincidentally, at midnight during their magic dance ball for one strapping young gentleman to claim it and propose to the Count Balsamico's daughter named Asito. Wow, you know, the story kind of sounds like a fairy tale or something. The twist, though, is that Velvino, the criminal, uses transformation magic and can perfectly replicate anyone's magic by using a form of caster magic called Magical Drain, allowing him to seamlessly blend in with the crowd, taking anyone's identity. Ultimately, the team of Natsu, Happy, Lucy, Urza, Gray, Wendy, Carla, Elfman, and Warren, of all people, snuff the villain out, and the night ends with little to no injuries or casualties for once. Now, despite how much I enjoy Slice of Life, I'm still ranking this high because, well, I'll usually take an actual job over a day off, you know, unless it's absolute chaos. They almost had me. This would have been top 20. The way this whole thing ended, it was incredibly anticlimactic. The whole time, Velvino actually only planned to steal the ring so that he could propose to Asito himself. It was just like, nah, I just played. By the end of the episode, Velvino basically had all of Fairy Tail beat after copying everyone's magic. But, you know, because this is filler, it kind of just feels like the battle came to a sudden and rather awkward halt. It was just like, nah, I just played. He was still arrested. I don't know. It still feels like a cop-out to me. But hey, you love to see a brother win at the end of the day. W Riz, even if he does look 30 years older than the girl. Number 21, let the chaos begin. It's the Fairies penalty game OVA. This is, I'll have a lot of explaining to do. In a surprising display of continuity, the Fairy Tail members that competed in the Grand Magic Games come together to settle the bet they made during the tournament. Whichever team performs the best gets to boss the other team around for an entire day. As we all know, like with most shonen tournaments, the entire thing ended up becoming a shit show. So the bet is instead resolved over a simple game of rock, paper, scissors, which Urza unfortunately loses to Loxus. So the entire Team A become Team B's servants for the day. Obviously, Juvia capitalizes on this opportunity. Loxus sends Natsu and Elfman on a bunch of dummy missions. Mira Jane spends the entire day humiliating Urza in a maid outfit, BDSM Rhea Ripley Dami Mommy style. Lucy has to be a background dancer for Gagio's concert. Happy and Carla have to fly Panther Lily around the city. And it's implied that Kana is literally about to pimp out Wendy to the streets, but luckily, she only ends up bringing her to an orphanage to keep some kids company. Aww. There's parts of this where I'm really glad I live alone. If somebody caught me watching this, I would probably, again, the sexualization of Wendy must be stopped. Why is she even drawn like this? She's supposed to be 12. I'm gonna be honest, I feel like Juvia, or, well, the writers at least, they completely dropped the ball with this Gray thing. You telling me Juvia had Gray for an entire day and they barely get any screen time? Number 20, top 20. The 24-hour endurance road race. I love competitions, death games, all of that, especially if it's in the format of a race. Anybody that's seen my Naruto filler video knows how much I love the Land of Tea, the Labyrinth game from Boruto. This is my jam, man. I'm gonna be honest though, this episode did kind of piss me off a little bit, but we'll get to it. This is the Fairy Tail Guild's annual 24-hour endurance race. The objective is simple. Climb Mount Ivor, retrieve a wyvern scale, and return to the guild hall before the 24-hour period is up. Whoever comes in dead last will be subject to Master Makarov's grueling punishment. To be determined. The race started off entertaining enough, what with the members of the guild obviously using magic to sabotage each other. Oh, and also flying is prohibited, which really throws a wrench in Happy and Evergreen's plans. Lucy and Levy the entire time being just the normal girls left in the dust is pretty fun. Supporting each other through sisterhood and girl power and stuff. That is until Lucy's had enough and just summons a celestial spirit to carry her through the rest of the race. Sorry, Levy. Jet, the reigning champion, who's had a pretty comfortable lead the entire race because his magic is literally speed, decides to take a breather at a certain point, but ends up falling asleep. Almost missing the entire race, actually, had Happy not woken him up. The final 5 end up being him, Urza, Natsu, Gagil, and Gray. Again, because shenanigans. Ultimately, Natsu trips. This is the second time in this video, causing everyone else to trip over Natsu. In spite of that, though, Urza still manages to sneak across the finish line. Everyone else, though, ends up grabbing on a jet, and it ends in a 4-way tie for last place with all the lads, which is unfortunate for them because the punishment ends up being a bunch of risque photo shoots for Sorcerers Weekly, which I'm sure Urza would have done fabulously in, but of course we can never have nice things. There's a huge plot hole here. Right, if Jet was so fast that he easily blitzed everybody at the start of the race, then why could he not have also just as easily closed the gap at the end? Sure, he was asleep for a long time. And yes, Natsu tripping did kind of mess everybody's mojo up. Now, I guess you could say he was tired, right? From doing double time to catch up to everybody else and ran out of magic power. But it's not like any of the other guys were using magic either. And to be honest, like, yeah, he fell asleep, but where he took a nap at wasn't even all that far from the finish line. So how much catching up did he really have to do? Maybe he just wanted to showcase his sportsman-like qualities. Yeah, Jet looks like an absolute goon here, man. A sidekick in an already secondary, maybe even tertiary group of characters gets his moment in the spotlight, and this is how y'all treat him? Tragic. Number 19, the Daphne Arc. Our first actual story arc of the list. Excluding Kemo-Kemo, I guess. I'm gonna be honest, this is another one. This whole arc kind of pissed me off, bro. Starting from the beginning, we have this girl named Daphne, right? That became infatuated with dragons at a very young age. So infatuated that she devoted her life to creating a bunch of artificial dragons through the power of science. She then proceeds to set off one of her giant artificial dragons loose on her hometown for the sake of analysis, I guess, and also because of this grudge that she's held against them from when she was younger, when nobody believed her after she saw a dragon. This forces the town's residents to use a spell to conceal themselves and avoid imminent death. However, Daphne, possessing the same type of magic, being from the same town obviously, developed a seal on the spell, trapping them within the concealment, unable to return to the physical plane, turning them into ghosts, more or less. A young Natsu, years later, then stumbles across the town searching for Igmio, and the residents manage to reach out to Natsu, telling them about their plight through the clever use of shadows. Natsu, unfortunately though, forgets about this over the years that he promised to save them. That is until Daphne re-emerges, hoping to capture Natsu and use him as a power source for her giant dragonoid. Now, I'll be the first one to admit that Fairy Tail doesn't exactly have the deepest villains in history or anything, but Daphne's motivation to destroy the world simply because she adores dragons and because nobody believed her when she was a kid, quite the petty reason to want to see the world burn, if you ask me. That isn't even my biggest issue with the arc though. Gray seemingly betrays the guild, working alongside Daphne to capture Natsu, but really it was all just this elaborate 4D chess move to hold Natsu accountable for the promise that he made, because he also knew about this whole city without sound fiasco and overheard that a Dragon Slayer's magic power is the Dragonoid's weakness, which is technically true. First of all, obviously this plan backfires, right? Because Daphne's whole plan was to capture Natsu anyway. Then there's everybody else's overreaction to Gray helping Daphne, when A, he was always perpetually at war with Natsu, and everyone knows this, and B, after everything that Loxus and the Thunder Legion did, this is like nowhere near the level of tension that it creates. They're treating this like this is like Sasuke leaving the village or something. But most importantly, bruh, Gray, could you not have just politely reminded Natsu about his promise, right? Or maybe not politely. Thankfully, it's not a long arc, and despite the weak motivation, Daphne still has that mad scientist waifu archetype that I really enjoy. But yeah, the writing in this could have been way better. Number 18 now, we legal. It's Welcome Back, Frosch. I had to rank this high just because, yo, this is my boy. This is a filler episode immediately following the end of the Grand Magic Games arc, about Frosch getting lost and trying to find his way back to the Sabretooth Guild after getting sidetracked while out shopping. Rogue, Sting, Lecter, and Yukino rush out to find him, and they do, but Rogue wants to give Frosch the opportunity to find his way back home on his own. Oh, this episode is so adorable, man. Look at Frosch being all resourceful and reading the map like a big boy, chasing down a frog and trying to become best friends with it. Oh, eluding a bunch of scoundrels, also not named the Butt Jiggle Gang, who were trying to capture him. Oh, our boy is independent. I also love the wizards silently helping Frosch from the shadows. Rogue specifically sort of being a reflection of how we all feel, believing in his partner wholeheartedly, despite the Exceed constantly getting distracted at every turn. Other wizards show up throughout the episode as well to help aid Frosch, like Team Natsu. Kagura and Miliana are about to have a fight to the death over who rightfully deserves Frosch's affection. There's this genuinely tear-jerking moment where Frosch declares his want to not be so dependent on his teammates to Urza, which makes me and Rogue so proud, man. So proud! And then at the end, after an entire afternoon of shenanigans, Frosch finally locks in, gets on the right track, and walks all the way back to Fairy Tail. Yep, you gotta love it. And then there's this whole weird bit at the beginning where Sting, being the new guildmaster and everything, orders everyone to strip naked, and it's supposed to be this really dark and uncomfortable scene. But then it's all just a joke because it's pool day and everyone was just getting into their bathing suits. Somehow I'm not surprised that Fairy Tail did an SA joke. Hey, there's not a lot of filler involving Sabretooth, but this is definitely one of them. On to the next one, not involving Frosch, unfortunately. Number 17, It's Natsu Eats a Village, Devours a Village, whichever translation. The first filler episode of the series, and the first omake, I guess, right? Somebody fact check me. On their way home, after taking down the Dark Guild Eisenwald, Team Natsu and Makarov, starving after not eating for days, starts looking for food, after Happy discovers something that might lead them to the Hane Sakana, a legendary delicacy in Fiore. This leads the group to a seemingly abandoned village, which Urza deems suspicious enough to investigate. TLDR, the village used to belong to another Dark Guild that possessed this forbidden type of magic that turns inanimate objects into living creatures. Team Natsu ends up fighting these creatures after mistakenly triggering a magic circle, which turns out to actually be the villagers taken over by the creatures, the same way that I guess Mirror Jane is taken over by the Satan Soul. Ultimately, the magic circle is mysteriously undone, and after all of the hoopla, the gang continues their journey home, still hungry as ever. Tragic. Now, the story is, let's say, typical. Rescue these people held hostage by forbidden magic storyline, which is like 80% of Fairy Tail, let's be real. I just think this episode was funny as hell, man. The whole subplot with Natsu, Gray, Happy, and these weird mushrooms are hilarious. Seeing Happy roast the other two because mushrooms are sprouting out of the crown of their heads after they all ate these weird mushrooms out the ground. That is until one starts growing out of Happy's head, which now he's all mad and serious about it. Why does Happy's mushroom look way more phallic than the other two? This is, I feel like I should be pausing this. Again, it's not a story that sets the world on fire or anything, but this episode is like 2 or 3 omakes in one, and yeah, it's pretty good. Doesn't overstay its welcome, and it got a few chuckles out of me. Number 16 now. Oof. This is a big one. It's the Phoenix Priestess movie. The first Fairy Tail movie, and it's pretty much every Battle Shonen princess movie that you've ever seen. A tsundere princess that hates magic and wizards, obviously, end up coming into contact with our heroes. And despite her bad attitude for most of the movie, our protagonists are determined to help said princess, named Eclair, carrying the burden of conquering this monster that's been cursing her people for generations. And of course, she also has amnesia on top of this from her village being destroyed years ago, leaving her to wander around for hundreds of years, actually, why she looking at her eventually meets Lucy and Magnolia. So a large part of this movie is just helping her remember what she's meant to do. Enter this snobby, extremely overconfident prince with an incredibly punchable face, wanting to use said monster for his own gain. This monster being this magical phoenix whose blood is supposed to grant you immortality if you drink it or something like that. The phoenix only able to be summoned after bringing together 2 halves of this special stone. Of course, with our Princess Eclair being in possession of one of the halves. The bad guys kidnap her, but then one of the extremely punchable prince guys hired mercenaries, then eliminate him and take the power all for himself. Major final battle ensues, the power of friendship wins, and the princess sadly gives up her life, but it also means that her immortality curse gets broken as well, being in possession of the Phoenix's power. It's not a bad movie or anything, it's just, just kind of generic. Switch out the power systems and the setting, I guess, and this could easily be the plot of a One Piece movie, a Naruto movie, a Gintama movie, a Hunter x Hunter movie. I think you get my point. And yeah, the movie still looks amazing. There's a couple cool fights in there as well, like Urza against this lady that can also re-equip. Gajil versus this weird shadow guy with a mask as well, because he's all cool and mysterious. I decided to also lump in the prequel for this movie here too, which came out like a year later for some reason. It's only a 12-minute backstory for Eclair and her companion, this sentient stuffed animal named Momon. My only takeaway is that Momon is easily the best character introduced from this entire story. He's just so nice and patient with Eclair, despite her being this emo teenage prick. So yeah, just to wrap this entire thing up, Phoenix Priestess. Eclair sucks, but Momo's pretty chill. Next, number 15. It's the Fairies Training Camp. This OVA came out with special editions of volume 35 of the manga, and let me just say right off the bat, this is one of my favorite looking episodes in all of Fairy Tail, probably. And I'm not just saying that because of the genuinely great art from beginning to end. An episode that I kind of see as the Ryuzetsu Land OVA, but just on cocaine. It's your usual vacation getaway slice of life episode. Basically a beach episode, a party episode, and a hot spring episode all in one. And let's just get straight into it, man. My favorite section of the episode where all the girls break into the resort early and drink all of the liquor. We get to see every type of drunk person here pretty much. Urza is the angry one. Carla is the bossy one. Wendy is the one that can't handle her liquor. I'm pretty sure this is also illegal. Juvia is the crier. Levy is the silly one. And Lucy is the horny one. And then they all proceed to put the boys through hell. Hilarious. The beginning section where they all go to the beach is just okay. A standard fan service pretty much, with a cool action scene at the end with Natsu and Gray ruining everybody's day, because of course they are. And then the hot spring scene at the end is also just okay. It's really just more titties. However, Lucy does end up telling everyone this story about when she visited Natsu's house once, but he never came home because he and Happy were waiting for her at her house, which is just great for the Lucy x Natsu agenda. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about seeing Wendy and Mavis naked here. I won't even show them on screen because it really is that, yeah, like how do they even get references for these types of shots? Overall, I think funnier than Natsu Eats a Village or Welcome Back Frosch. And that's mainly just the drunk scene carrying. On to number 14 now. Starting to get really sick and tired of seeing bikini tops. It's 413 days. Yeah, she can be a bit of an obnoxious, one-note running gag of a character at times, but I think we all deserve someone that is as devoted, as passionate as Juvia is, man. Another omake, this time about Juvia celebrating the 413th day since she and Gray first met. Originally, she was just going to enjoy the day like any other day, but Urza convinces her to get Gray a gift. Juvia, not really knowing anything about how to buy someone a gift, let alone the man she's been fawning over since the beginning of the series, spends the whole first half of the episode pretty much just going around the guild hall seeking advice on what to buy / do / make for Gray. After failing miserably at baking Gray a cake, and after a suggestion by Carla, Juvia then decides to just knit Gray a scarf instead. Eventually, Juvia runs into him, completely unaware that this is actually the anniversary of the death of his master, Or, which of course ends up in total disaster. But I think this would have been a disaster regardless. Thankfully though, it all works itself out after Gray feels bad about himself, goes back to pick up the scarf off the ground and wears it after it triggers memories of the scarf that Or used to give him and Leon back in the day when they got cold. Juvia and Urza then end up having this really touching heart-to-heart moment as Juvia is, is feeling horrible after being so ignorant of Gray's trauma. Not only do you not really get to see these two characters interact on this level that often, I just really appreciate this level of self-awareness from Juvia, right? And once again, Urza is just the best character, bro. She's the strongest. She's the most understanding. She's the best leader. She's the freakiest girl. Gray eventually apologizes to Juvia, and Juvia, of course, feels sorry as well. Just another display of them not being all too dissimilar from each other, failing to acknowledge each other's feelings. Gray slowly warming up to Juvia, kind of foreshadowing events to come in Tartaros. It's great. The chunk of the episode where she's trying to find a gift for Gray is a bit of a drag and not that funny. But the ending section with all the snows and pianos and shit, again, the aesthetic, it's amazing. Makes me feel like I'm in a holiday romance movie. And you really start to feel for Juvia towards the end, man. Gray is a jerk, Hey, if Fairy Tail was Why Did I Get Married, Juvia would be Sheila and Gray would definitely be Mike. I guess Leon would be Troy. And this would be the timeline where Mike actually got his shit together. I don't know. Hey, all my people of color, y'all know what I'm talking about. Next, number 13, continuing with days. It's Memory Days. I mean, at some point we had to get a time travel arc, right? And it's actually not that bad. Seeing as how time travel almost always ruins every franchise it touches and turns it into a convoluted mess. Looking at Fairy Tail's general reputation and its controversial history with time manipulation as well, this is actually not that bad, man. Bonus points for that. It's only one episode for starters, so there's less time to even think about it. In the guild's library, or wherever Natsu, Happy, Gray, Urza, and Lucy are arranging all these books on a shelf, everyone gets distracted seeing Natsu without his scarf, which is pretty weird, actually, because Kinda looks like he's wearing the Majin Buu vest. This causes Lucy to fall off of a ladder, making a bunch of the books fall. One of which in particular opens, sending them all back to Magnolia when they were kids. And then it's kind of basic time travel fan service, each of them stumbling across their younger selves, and for the most part, yo, was that Hilda? For the most part, they avoid creating any history-altering moments. It's actually quite clever how they play with their own history here. The whole episode is set up when it's shown that Natsu has a secret scar on his neck underneath his scarf, only for that to be paid off by revealing that he actually did that to himself. Twice over, actually. Blocking an attack from his younger self when his younger self, after losing a fight to Gray, woke up thinking his older self was a monster attacking him, when his older self was really just fired up and embarrassed after witnessing his own loss. Lucy manages to save herself, her younger self stuck on this runaway carriage, and it ends up being the entire reason why she wants to join Fairy Tail in the first place after her younger self catches a flash of the Fairy Tail insignia on the older Lucy's hand. Even the Memory Days book itself ends up disappearing after warping our heroes back to present time, only to reappear somewhere else near Makarov at the end of the episode, where he then just, whimsically just throws it back in the library for another OVA potentially down the line. We never got it. But it does make you think, are the locations where it reappears random? Is it a thing where it appears near whoever is the current guild master? Who created this? How long has it been here? What happens if the book gets destroyed while someone is in another time? It's pretty interesting, to be honest. And again, the story is so short, it makes it easy to overlook some slight butterfly effect shenanigans. They even address the butterfly effect in the actual episode, which helps. The only part I refuse to overlook is Urza's interaction with her younger self. I refuse to believe that Urza, of all people, even as a 10-year-old, wouldn't be suspicious enough to recognize her older self. Even just the hair, right? Even if she was in a furry costume, right? It's Urza. Now, number 12... we getting into the real heavy hitters. It's Lightning Man. We got a rare filler episode featuring the Ryuzetsu. Here, the Thunder God tribe takes a job specifically asking for Loxus. If you're asking yourself why I keep switching between translations, it's okay, you get what I mean. Why Loxus? Well, because it's a town that needs his help after being taken over by thunderclouds. Loxus has a my bad moment when he acknowledges that he might have actually been the cause of this thunderstorm while dealing with some scoundrels, also not named the Butt Jiggle Gang, on his last trip a little while ago, completely altering the climate One Piece style like he has awakened his devil fruit or something. Loxus rather quickly disposes of the clouds, but the rest of the team suspects something is off after meeting with the town's mayor. Turns out the mayor is basically committing insurance fraud by setting up a lacrima underground to propagate Loxus's magic, using the damages to cheat the system and get some money, and then basically just gaslighting Loxus the entire time, using Fairy Tail's reputation against him. Eventually, they all figure out the play. Loxus destroys the lacrima core and then scares the mayor straight. And yeah, that's pretty much it. A simple mystery story with aura attacks from the Ryuzetsu, and it's pretty dope. There's even a Dragon Ball Z reference in there with Loxus joking about them going Super Saiyan, which I really wasn't expecting. Honestly, it's just great to see Loxus and the rest of his gang getting some spotlight. They rarely ever show up in filler. All right. Number 11, a top 10 honorable mention, if you will. It's Changeling. Ah, yes, the classic body switch episode. The more filler I watch, I'm starting to see Fairy Tail like an anime sitcom. Here we have another really early filler episode. A pre-Wendy, pre-Gajiel and Juvia filler episode about Lucy, Natsu, Happy, Gray, Urza, and Loki before he became Lucy's Zodiac Celestial Spirit, getting hit with a spell that makes them all switch bodies, Punk Hazard style. Freaky Friday? Fairy Friday?
Freaky Fairy.
It happens automatically after Natsu carelessly reads some ancient text out loud on the job posting. Makarov explains that this might be something called the Changeling spell, which makes people swap magic as well as personalities, and that it must be reversed within 30 minutes. Coincidentally, a similar length to your standard anime episode, or they'll be stuck in each other's bodies forever. Levy gets so overworked in this episode, man, I feel bad for her. They are relying on her expertise. This is all before the Thunder Legion's attempted coup d'etat and everything, so, no free to help her decipher the text either. Loki switches with Natsu, Lucy switches with Gray, which is hilarious because Gray constantly tries undressing himself, and then Urza switches with Happy, which is also hilarious because of how powerless Urza feels in Happy's body. After probably the most stressful half hour of Levy's entire life, she finally figures out that saying the spell backwards might do the trick. And it did do the trick for Lucy and Gray, but everyone else remains the same. And now Makarov, Mira Jane, Elfman, Kana, Jet, and Droy have all switched bodies too. And then the episode just kind of ends because, well, time is up. A bit of a loose end of an ending, but it's not really that big of a deal because, I mean, well, for one, body swapping jokes are kind of an open goal for me, comedically speaking. There's also some really nice foreshadowing here with Loki, too, with Natsu not being able to sense his magic while being inside of his body, because he's actually a celestial spirit. Now, also, why is this a job? What's the job? To just decipher the words? Nah, somebody trolling. Number 10, let the chaos continue. It's the terror of Invisible Lucy. Ooh. It's really kind of hard to fuck up an invisibility joke, isn't it? Lucy decides to use this magical ointment that she made for herself 7 years ago. It's supposed to make her skin glow, purr, or whatever the girlies say on TikTok. However, after pouring the entire bottle into her bath, it completely turns her invisible, making Lucy assume that its magical effects probably changed over the time skip. I'm not sure how that works. She immediately runs back to Fairy Tale for help, and of course shenanigans ensue. First of all, she can't wear any clothes because only her body is invisible, and it would look extremely weird walking around, kind of like Hagakure from My Hero Academia. There's also a bunch of groping jokes in there that you all saw it coming. Once she gets to the guild hall, though, she immediately then begins to incite a giant brawl, Royal Rumble style, using her invisibility to prank people. It went from 0 to 100 real quick. I also really love the gag of everyone using, or should I say abusing, Ryuzetsu's magic to try and help paint a face for Lucy to wear. Did I mention that Happy is loving this the entire time? Yo, Happy is a menace. Eventually things get serious though once Lucy and everything she owns starts vanishing for real. Everyone rushes to save her entire existence from being erased, but to no avail. That is until Natsu, through sheer muscle memory, I guess, remembers that he was going to ask Lucy to go on a job with him back at the beginning of the episode. Lucy poofs back into existence and everyone lives happily ever after. And then Happy slams into Lucy, causing the ointment to go all over everyone else, leaving everybody but Lucy invisible now. Great. I mean, there's a couple things that I could nitpick about this, like how random and easy it was for Natsu to remember somebody that doesn't even exist anymore, and how is there so much of this potion left when it seemed like Lucy poured the entire bottle out in the bathtub at the beginning of the episode? Who really cares, man? Who really cares? It's a gag. The thing at the end where, you know, the inverse happens, everyone else getting turned invisible, it's just a tried and true method of comedic writing, to be honest. It's been used for generations across many different forms of media. On to number 9, naughty number 9, but not really, because it's Wendy's first job. Another wholesome one. Carla is in rare form in this episode, yo, let me tell you. Kendrick Lamar hater mode. Basically, Wendy wants to prove herself, so she decides to go on her first big-time job all by herself. But Makarov insists that Happy and Freed, of all people, accompany her, and honestly, this is just a trio that I never knew I wanted. You got the clumsy but wholesome and very well-intentioned Wendy, obviously. The extremely straight-laced and stoic, but also very wholesome in his own right, Freed. And then you got Happy. Wendy is determined to prove a point despite being in over her head. Freed doesn't want to patronize her, so he kind of, you know, falls back into his rogue position from the Frosch episode that we talked about earlier, just cheering on from the sidelines. And obviously Happy is complaining the entire time because he never wanted to go. And also because Wendy and Freed are just so freaking earnest. So earnest that they decide to walk all the way across Fiore to Onibus because the trains are down. Obviously, Happy is pissed. Catching wind of this, Urza, Lucy, and Carla, despite, again, hating the entire episode, the entire series, follow after them to make sure that they're okay. Natsu's there too. Sorta. I am sweating now. Earlier, it's a completely different day. Earlier in the video, it was raining, and now I'm the one that's raining. Everyone's struggling while walking through the desert, even encountering a cursed sandstorm monster. Wendy, ultimately, though, is the one that saves the day for everybody. And then the job ends up being a false alarm. Instead, now Wendy gets ordered to remove all of the loiterers outside of the theater, including Natsu, who took the entire episode to catch up to them. Again, not really anything that's that deep or anything. I just really enjoy this spotlight for Wendy and Carla. You know, letting Wendy be free. Be free, my child. Number 8, back to the chaos. It's Fairy Tale of the Dead. Man. Once again, this is my jam, bro. It absolutely makes no sense. Ichiya from Blue Pegasus creates a new parfum that causes a plague all throughout Magnolia, essentially turning everyone into zombies with Ichiya's face on them. Everyone, that is, except for Natsu, Happy, Wendy, Carla, and Lucy. in a bunny outfit for whatever reason. It's a bunch of yeah all over the beginning of this episode, man, because Urza, Juvia, and Levy,
and especially not Wendy,
are all in waitress outfits for a job, and they look absolutely magnificent. Natsu eventually remembers this perfume Lacrima, basically Axe body spray, that Urza once gave to him because, you know, he's stinking, and uses it to cure everyone of the handsome disease. That's pretty much it. It's a single episode. I just really appreciate the dedication from the voice actors here, bruh. Everyone doing their best Ichiya voice. It's hilarious in the most psychotic and dystopian way possible. Even Loxus gets sucked into this madness, bro. What did they do to my boy? And then, of course, at the end, Ichiya gets sent to jail for life. And by life, I mean for the rest of the episode. And then he shows up to help destroy the phase bombs in the next arc. It's almost like it never even happened. Easily one of my favorite omakes. I'm honestly surprised Blue Pegasus doesn't show up more. Number 7 now. Flying through. We almost done, boys. Special request. Watch out for the guy you like. Another filler based around Juvia. You love to see it. This is a prime example of how the anime adaptation greatly surpasses the omake it's based on. This time, Juvia goes to some shady-looking drug dealer to obtain this potion of passion. Obviously to use it on Gray. Turns out that guy was great at finessing, though, because this potion of passion ends up having, let's just say, adverse side effects on everyone in Fairy Tail, because of course Juvia's clumsy ass didn't only hit Gray with it. Basically, instead of creating these passionate feelings of love and romance, it instead creates passionate feelings of competition, or as Natsu would say, a fire in everyone's bellies. The Thunder Legion has a gang war with Shadow Gear. Macau and Wakaba go band for band. That's great. Makarov tries to outdrink alcohol itself, and Urza develops a rivalry with a wooden pillar. Sensational. Gray, on the other hand, challenges Happy to a flying contest. Why do people hate Fairy Tail again? Meanwhile, Lucy catches wind of a rumor that Natsu might have a crush on somebody in the guild. And after a very unusual interaction between the two at the beginning of the episode, with Natsu telling Lucy to meet him out in the park alone at night, Riz. This has Lucy's mind scrambled for the entire day, as she's obviously under the impression that he might confess his love for her. And this is what the original omake was about. Just this part. Nothing about the passion potion and all those other shenanigans. This is why I decided to count these episodes. Ultimately, the twist is Natsu actually needed help from Virgo, one of Lucy's celestial spirits, to help him dig up some old embarrassing pictures of a bunch of Fairy Tail members, which is why he was acting weird about it all day, trying to keep it a secret. Meanwhile, the entire time Urza's been getting low diff by a pole, and Gray's racing against the horizon now after Juvia forced him to drink even more of the potion, like the entire bottle pretty much. This is my type of comedy right here, man. Of course, the romance teasing between Lucy and Natsu is great fun as well, but everything surrounding this weird potion that Juvia got at this random trap house for an exorbitant amount of money, by the way. This is great. And this is pre-Arashi Sei, so you don't have to deal with Carla being here, you know, with her panties all in the bunch the entire time. Number six, even more chaos. We not done yet. I'm losing my voice. It's Transform! Exclamation point. Well, this episode went left quick. Natsu and Happy overhear Lucy asking Mira Jane to teach her some transformation magic. She decides to then give all three of them a lesson. Simple enough. Oh yeah, and Macau and Wakaba overhear this as well, so they also follow them and watch from the bushes, because they want to be main characters too, you see. Elsewhere, Urza goes shopping with Wendy, Carla, and Evergreen. Gajil and Lily overhear this, and they decide to get some new drip as well. And by drip, I mean they find superhero outfits and basically become Batman and Robin. Literally, in Gajio's case, literally he becomes Batman. Urza becomes jealous over this, which is when the shopkeeper then decides to give her a superhero outfit. Urza becomes a sexy Catwoman, you love to see it, and the three of them peace out to go fight crime. Yeah, that actually happened. Anyway, back to the A-plot. Natsu and Happy have moderate success transforming into Lucy, but everybody else, including the two lurkers in the bushes, fail miserably. Macau and Wakaba specifically failing so miserably that they end up trying so hard to transform and end up transforming into monstrous purple and smoky creatures, aptly naming themselves Mr. Purple and the Cigar. Natsu and Happy then try to use some transformation magic to help, but they only end up turning into a flower and a piece of construction paper. Alright, our superheroes, in case you forgot about that plot, they then start hearing screams of innocent civilians getting caught up in this entire fiasco, and they arrive on the scene to help. With Urza, Fairy Woman knocking Macau and Wakaba back into their base form. And then she turns into a JoJo character. This is another one of those that's actually like two omakes combined into one episode. One, the shopping and the transformation are like 2 separate stories. Definitely one of my favorites. Easily. Mashima, the anime writers, the animation staff, I don't know. Somebody was fried as hell when they was putting this together. That's all I gotta say. All right, boys. On to the top 5. The cream of the crop. Probably wasn't expecting this one. Or maybe you were, if, you know, you're cultured. It's Fairy Tail X Rave. Yeah. I feel like I know now, an hour into this video, I feel like I know what a perfect filler is to me. Or my favorite kind of filler, rather. Filler usually swings in 2 ways. It's either a slice of life comedy or a full-blown story arc. Sometimes I'll lean towards the story arc, you know, if the actual story is strong. But usually what I tend to enjoy most often is the 1 to 2 episode wacky slice of life that then turns serious in the end with a big fight scene. You know, it's a perfect mix of comedy and action, right? And I feel like that is what the Fairy Tail Rave Master collab gives me. As someone that's never seen Rave Master, I had a blast with this, man. Instantly, I got all the characters. Yeah, that might be because all of Hiro Mashima's series are kind of just the same thing with a different skin. But it worked for me, man. I had fun with this. And the animation go crazy. Dear Lord. I don't know who this suplex lady is, but I will give her all of my money. The story here is that Team Natsu, including Juvia for gag reasons, visits the land of Rave Master, searching for this big-breasted barbarian causing trouble around town. Lucy and Happy then run into Ellie, and they think it's her, but it actually turns out to be Urza of all people working at a casino. More fan service. The animation go crazy. What was I talking about? Kurotowa of all people then shows up, that guy from the Arachion Seis, using a dark bring stone to transform into a giant Gundam slot machine, basically. He even grows it. And then he attacks the place, forcing them all to team up and take him down. Let and Julia, the suplex lady, help out Wendy. Musica, Gray, and Juvia, sorta, work together as well, and a team of Natsu, Haru, Lucy, Ellie, and Urza fight to take down the giant slot machine robot. And there you have it. The Butt Jiggle gang are also there for whatever reason before they get immediately overshadowed by this guy Lazenby, who shows them how to be a proper funny gag villain. Overall, this is just really good and really hilarious. Great by Fairy Tail filler standards, and I'd say crossover standards in general. I'd say I'd enjoy this more than the One Piece Toriko Dragon Ball thing. This was great. Number 4, it's a big one. It's a controversial one too, depending on, you know, how you feel about it. It's the Eclipse Celestial Spirits arc. The reason why this isn't any higher for me is because I feel like it kind of gets carried by its concept. An arc where all of Lucy's zodiac spirits turn evil and betray her, and it's a direct result of the Eclipse project tying it back to the main story. While on a mission, Lucy has some trouble summoning her zodiacs. Yukino from Sabretooth and Princess Hisui eventually catch up to her and try and figure out a solution. Them and a bunch more Fairy Tail members then try to stop the zodiacs from completing this Labyrinth ritual, which will grant them their freedom, but only for about 12 days before they all die. Turns out this was all just a means for Ophiuchus, one of Yukino's spirits that got low-diffed by Kagura that one time during the Grand Magic Games, now proclaiming herself to be the 13th Zodiac, to feed all of the Zodiac's power to the evil Celestial Spirit King, also affected by the time manipulation in the Eclipse Gate from the arc before. It then becomes a battle to stop the Celestial Spirit King, now turned into this Celestial Spirit Kaiju monster, from destroying the entire spirit world. Now again, while I think this arc sounds very good on paper, the execution was lacking a little bit in my opinion. A lot of the quote-unquote fights against the Zodiacs, if you could even call it that, they're kind of disappointing. Most of them are more competitions than fights, first of all. And despite having this great resolve, so great that they don't even care that they die after the 12 days of freedom, a lot of them sure do admit defeat very quickly. Virgo versus Lucy set up as one of the most emotionally charged battles of the entire arc because of their relationship since the beginning of the story. That basically just ended up being Lucy running away for about 5 episodes until she and Yukino hit one team attack, and that's it. Yeah, she gives up. But I'm sure there are a bunch of people out there that really enjoyed these, let's just say, Mira Jane antics from evil Virgo that now loves to give punishment instead of receiving it. Okay. The literal Yu-Gi-Oh duel between Kana and Scorpio, that was kind of dope. The final battle against the Celestial Spirit Beast was pretty cool in the spirit world, basically fighting in outer space. But did we really need this whole Ophiuchus puppet master thing to get to this point? The Zodiacs could have just went ahead with the Labyrinth, completely ignorant of its true purpose, or maybe not. Maybe they just don't give a fuck. But either way, it would have had the same effect if you took Ophiuchus out of it. Ophiuchus was not needed here. A waste of an episode, to be honest. Then there's this whole episode fighting evil Pisces over some keys that was Completely pointless because they were fakes all along. So it was like, why were you even fighting her this entire time? You could have just ran away. The pacing is questionable at times, but focusing on the positives here, we do get some pretty sweet redesigns for the Zodiacs, I will admit. The spirits winning their freedom is an interesting concept. And to be honest, anytime Princess He-Sweet gets more screen time, hey, you won't hear me complaining. It's a bunch of baddies in this arc. It's like 20 episodes long, but hey, boys, we eating good. All right, number 3. It's Mulan Rouge. There's a reason why a single episode filler made it this high on the list. This is a textbook example of how filler should be used, in my opinion. Again, not technically filler because, you know, omake, but this is like literally filler. It literally fills us in on parts of the story that we would not have gotten in the main series. This is the tale of how Biska ended up joining Fairy Tail, an immigrant from the West with no money to her name, using the name of the Fairy Tail Guild to help her get away with all these petty crimes across Fiore to make ends meet. Eventually, she runs into Urza after she catches wind of all this at a tavern, who quickly does some straightening. Out of respect though, and admiration for her tenacity, she then decides to invite Biska, known as Mulan Rouge at this point, to join Fairy Tail officially. I really appreciate the time and effort taken out to even bother telling this story, man. As simple as it is. Again, if there's one thing Fairy Tail filler does well, like, they could have easily just left Biska to be the tertiary side character that she is, you know? At best, maybe having 1 or 2 moments where she takes out one of the villain's goons, or maybe adds some firepower to a final battle or something like that. You know, side character shit. But no, Mashima instead decided to give her this whole rugged vigilante complex, this incredibly relatable character motivation as well, doing it just so she can afford medicine for her sick loved one that turned out to just be a pet rat. Even this sort of like rivalry, sort of big sister relationship she has with Urza here, like she did not need this. Biska did not need this. Hey, it's more than we could say Alzak got. Literally the only one of the 3 to not get any extended focus. Even Asuka. Baby Asuka has an entire episode to herself. Poor Alzak, man. I always liked them better with the Ray haircut anyway. All right, number 2. Who was the runner-up? It's Dragon Cry. I actually really love this movie, but that's not a hot take. It even has this whole, I bet you're wondering how I got here moment with Natsu at the beginning, so already it's leagues ahead of the first movie, structurally speaking. The mission here, at the request of the King of Fiore himself, is to retrieve the Dragon Cry staff from a faraway land called Stella Island, from a man named Zash Kane, a fugitive that had once betrayed Fiore. And for, I think the first time ever, everything actually goes according to plan. Lucy and Urza use their womanly charm, of course, to pickpocket the keys from the guy at a tavern. Urza gives the key to Gray, who makes an ice copy. Natsu and Wendy then infiltrate a castle, and it gets a little bit dicey once Natsu finds out the hard way that the room holding the staff is actually booby-trapped. But after a little spy movie action sequence, they successfully steal the staff. Clean. However, Zash and his henchmen, of course, come for his lick back, beating up the rest of the team and taking Lucy with him. Fast forward a little bit. After freeing Lucy, the team meets this girl named Sonia, because it always has to be a damsel, right? Who explains her role as an assistant to Zash, an advisor to the king of Stella Island, Animus, as well as the Dragon Cry's purpose to quote-unquote protect the island from devastation. Fast forward some more. Spoiler alert, the big twist ends up being that the entire time Sonia was actually Animus, and that Animus is actually a dragon that sealed himself inside of Sonia to cheat death. Animus uses the staff's magic to free himself, and the big final battle is Natsu versus a giant dragon, to save both Stella Island and the entire land of Fiore from total annihilation. Immediately, love this whole split personality thing with Sonia. I thought maybe the king was her brother or something like that, maybe an old lover. Never would have thought of it being an illusion from the dragon inside of her, in human form, emotionally manipulating her. Zash Kane is also a pretty solid antagonist, irredeemably evil, you know, that ends up taking himself out in the end, burning up from the staff's magic because he can't control it. All of his henchmen have some pretty cool designs, one basically looking like an evil Natsu, one looking like a mixture of Diavolo and Poochie from JoJo. One is just straight up Mirko from My Hero Academia. We get some really interesting flashbacks here with Ignil, and in the post-credit scene, we actually even see Agnologia and Zareth show up. This movie is not just great as a feature-length film in isolation, but it's also a really great setup for the final arc. We see Wendy's dragon force form, Carla's human form, even Natsu in a partial E&D transformation, all before the 2018 series started. My only real complaint with this movie is how the B team is treated. Gagio, Lily, Levy, and Juvia embark on the same exact job and end up adding absolutely nothing to the mission. Besides extra fighting power at the end, I guess. Like, if they're gonna be there the entire time following them around for the first half of the movie, at least have them be the ones to discover Sonya's true identity, right? Something. Give them something to do. Literally, the only reason this comes in second place is because of nostalgia. Which brings us to now, number 1. What could it be? You probably already figured it out by now. It's the key of the Starry Sky arc. Skip in this arc is just sacrilegious. The action, the adventure, like the RPG elements when they're looking for the clock pieces, it's really great. The added lore for Lucy and the Heartfilia family as a whole. There are many reasons why this is the best filler arc in Fairy Tail. But the one person that I have to give credit to before anything else is Michelle. Spoiler alert, I always knew she was going to be the traitor in the end, but somehow it still blindsided me. So much other stuff was happening around her to distract me, right? Legion Core shenanigans, the Neo-Arachion Sace is a thing. Like, I always kind of figured it would happen, but I still didn't want it to happen, especially after spending all this time with her. This is where these extended filler arcs can really flourish, in my opinion. Sometimes they are a drag, yes, but sometimes you can really grow attached to these characters, man. Only to have to deal with the crippling depression of not being able to see them ever again after this because, well, they're non-canon. But even that doesn't apply to Michelle because she's still there afterwards. She's always been there, actually, as the doll inside of Lucy's apartment that she's had when she was a kid. But back to the arc, Lucy's father, before he passed away, left Lucy this weird ancient magical artifact. A key, which Michelle delivers to her. The key ends up being a piece of the infinity clock, which once all the pieces are brought together, become this monstrous floating contraption that can alter people's perception of time, with a spell called Real Nightmare. Unbeknownst to Fairy Tail, they then go on a quest to find all the pieces and bring them together to keep them from falling into the wrong hands, battling the Legion Platoon? I don't know. Battling them along the way. A gang of Earthland counterparts of people they once met in Edelist a while back, seeking to assemble the clock in the name of the Archbishop of Fiore's Zentopia Church, only to realize the huge mistake they made, which is when the Arachion Sace then appear, freshly broken out of prison and way stronger than they were 7 years ago pre-Tenro, the true masterminds of this devilish scheme. After a lot of reevaluating, investigating, and a lot of stubborn fighting, Fairy Tail and the Legion Corps find themselves working together to take down the Neo-Arachion Sace. There's so much going on in this arc, man. The Legion Corps will find enough villains on their own, to be honest, especially with the Edelist callbacks. The Arachion Sace just take this to the next level. The recurring villains of Fairy Tail, kind of like the Phantom Troop from Hunter x Hunter. They always lurking in the background. Midnight, now calling himself Brain 2, basically set this entire thing up using personification magic, turning Lucy's doll into a human using someone else's identity, which Gildarts and Locky cracked the case on. Yes, Gildarts is also in this, which is cool. I think this is his only filler arc. Creating a fake Archbishop of the Church for the Legion Corps to devote themselves to, which the Magic Council caught on to. Too late, as usual. But of course, how could we forget the absolute best part of this arc? The Butt Jiggle Gang. Why are they here? This arc is basically told in 3 parts. The initial raid on Fairy Tail by the Legion Corps, the search for the clock pieces, and the final battle to stop the Arachion Sace. Great character work here for Coco and Byro specifically of the Legion Corps, coming to terms with how they've been basically used this entire time. Samuel is easily the coldest Exceed I've ever seen, basically Kabuto if he was a cat. I like all the Legion Corps, really. Even the weird guy that wants to marry Lucy. Lucy herself, of course, gets a lot of focus in this arc, discovering that her dad was actually this badass, softening her opinion on her family overall. But by far, again, man, the shiniest star in the sky, in the key of the Starry Sky arc, has to be Michelle. Her and Lucy's relationship is the backbone of this entire story, and that's why this will forever be goated.
If it's me, I apologize. I'm just high, so sometimes I'll just emphasize. I'm just shy, so I really need to emphasize. After this performance, check my vitals, make sure that I'm still alive, 'cause I give it all.